Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to a new video. Now in today's video, I'm going to be covering a new Rec Room developer blog. Now, believe it or not, before this CV2 state machine that I'm going to talk about, there was actually another developer blog that I didn't cover. I honestly forgot the name, but I will show it when I'm editing this, but I didn't want to cover this actual developer blog because it's quite literally all circuits. Really boring if you guys are trying to make a video off of. So, if you guys didn't already know, there was a developer blog that I didn't cover, just talking about circuits and whatnot. If you guys want to, you guys can check that out, but I'm going to be talking about the newer one which got released exactly today, called the CV2 state machine, and it's about this single circuit, and if it got its own developer blog, it must have some sort of significance. So of course I'm going to be reading it to you guys, but hopefully I don't make it too boring. Now they get started like this. They say creators are making incredibly impressive rooms these days, and many of these rooms involve managing lots of data and intricate circuitry, performing remarkably complex tasks. Recently, we talked about how data tables can help on the data side. Now we're introducing the state machine to help on the circuit side. It manages all that awesome complex circuitry easily by breaking things down into simpler states. Here's some fast facts if you guys want to give them a read. There's simplified complex functionality, there's one state at a time, modular design, nested state machines, and synced or unsynced. Now they talk about state machine chips. You can now add a CV2 state machine chip to your rooms from the palette to get started. Think of the state machine chip as a circuit board with a superpower. Only one child state is active at a time. This means that the events inside a state machine execute when a state chip is active, but in parentheses, and do not execute when the chip is inactive. Now, don't ask me what any of this means. But what would a state machine be without its states? Enter the state chip. If you're familiar with these circuit boards, you know that you can edit into them to add more chips. The same is true for the state machine chip. The state chip partners with the state machine chip by default. A state machine chip contains a child state chip, and remember, only one child state is active at any given moment. But then let's go deeper into the chip hierarchy by editing into that state chip to see what makes it tick. State chips come with child chips that allow you to go to other states and control what happens when entering or exiting this state. Here's a little graph if you guys want to about the chip, what it does, and basically how to use it if you guys are really that interested. Feel free to pause. Now they show us an NPC state machine example. They start with this. Now that you have a rundown what the state machine chips are, let's see them in action. In games, non-playable characters or NPCs often use state machines to handle the complex functionality needed to bring these characters to life. Using state chips, we can easily transition to a specific NPC state, regardless of whatever state it happened to be in before. Now let's create a simple NPC state machine example to see how the pieces come together. Say we want an enemy NPC with these behaviors: patrol, take cover, and attack. First off, you would drop a state machine chip into the room from the palette and use the configuration menu to name it NPC state machine. Open up the palette and add in two event description chips that control the NPC's behavior: NPC got shot at and NPC sees the player. Then basically you would edit into the state machine chip, then you would rename that default chip to patrol state, then you'll also add two more state chips from the palette and rename them take cover state and attack state. You want the NPC to patrol by default, so the patrol state needs to be active. Since we rename the default state chip that came with the state machine, we're basically all set. If you want to ever change the default active state, we can do that by configuring the NPC state machine chip and changing the default state value. Now we can imagine that our NPC takes out high-tech range-finding binoculars when they start patrolling and puts them away when they stop patrolling. Plus, we only want them to start using the binoculars when patrolling, so keep this in mind. We'll use the binoculars to show how a state machine can help simplify the complex functionality later. You would edit into the patrol state chip to set up what happens when the NPC enters and exits this state. Use the state to enter event receiver that's already in the state chip to execute the circuits needed when patrol state becomes active. In this case, we'll connect it to the circuit board that tells the NPC to take it out of its binoculars and start patrolling. Similarly, using the state will exit event receiver that's already in the state chip to put the NPC's binoculars away and stop patrolling whenever this state becomes inactive. Now let's tell the NPC what happens when it gets shot at to take cover or when it sees a player attack. We make these transitions happen when our state constant and go to state chips. Now, since I don't want to be here reading basically how to do it, as you guys see with the bullet points, they basically explain how exactly you guys can do this. So if you guys are trying to follow along like this is an exact tutorial, feel free to actually pause and read this actual stuff. I just don't want to bore people with, a bunch of circuit stuff, and, if you guys can see it here, it might just be better if you guys can read it at your own pace. Then eventually, there you have it. We created an NPC that has 3 separate states that will never conflict with each other because only one child state is active at a time. Now, thanks to this, we don't need to worry about whether another NPC got shot at an event receiver inside a different state chip that does something that conflicts with our patrol behavior. Event receivers inside the inactive state chips don't execute, and there's no need for complicated condition checks across all of our different states. Going back to those awesome high-tech range-finding binoculars from our example, our NPC only uses them when they patrol, and we made sure that an NPC puts them away when they leave the patrol state by using the state will exit event receiver. No matter what state the NPC goes to next, those fancy binoculars are tucked away safely. Now, state machines can also go inside of state chips. They say you can also nest state machines within state chips. Imagine we want states inside our patrol state chip that decide if the NPC is walking or jogging when they are patrolling. Thanks to the state machine's superpower, we can. And when the patrol state chip is active, its child chips are active too, including child state machine chips and their children. It works all the way down the chip hierarchy. Now let's get into how to do this. You would add a new state machine chip inside the patrol state chip and name it patrol behavior state machine, then add an event called NPC jog that we can use inside our new state machine chip. You add a mechanism by which an NPC switches between jog and walk, use a random int chip and if chip, and an n equals chip to send the NPC jog event randomly to the state chips inside our new state machine chip. This will randomly tell the NPC to walk or jog. Edit into our patrol behavior state machine chip and rename the default state chip that's already in there to walk state. This state is active by default, so our NPC walks while it patrols. To make it possible to jog, add a new state chip and name it jog state. Now within the walk state chip, you can use the state did enter and state will exit chip to make the NPC start walking when entering this state, and stop walking before leaving this state. In addition, add and configure an event receiver for the NPC jog event, conjure a state constant, and connect it to the go-to state chip to transition from the walk state to the jog state. If the random int chip we set up earlier outputs a 0 instead of a 1, the NPC jog event executes and we transition to the jog state. Now, when our NPC is in the patrol state, they will either walk or jog while patrolling, and importantly, our other states still don't need to worry at all what happens when the NPC patrols. When the NPC is taking cover, we didn't want them walking around, and when the NPC is attacking, we don't want them to use their high-tech binoculars. Since our states use the state will exit event to clean up the current state before leaving, we've made it easier to manage and create new functionality for our enemy NPC. Now lastly, here they have the synced state machines. One last thing before you dive into creating your own state machines to make your functionality simpler to think about, manage and expand on, state machines can be synced or unsynced. A synced state machine's active state makes the experience consistent across all players in your room. Just use the configure tool on your state machine chip and look for the synced toggle. Now, I know, that's a lot of stuff to go through, and trust me, since it's all circuits, I really do expect most of you guys to kind of be asleep right now. But never mind that. If you guys are already here and you guys are still watching, thank you guys so much, and be sure to let me know if you guys have any questions down in the comments below. Now I'll have the devlog actually linked inside the description below. Thank you guys so much for, sticking around if you guys are seeing this right now, and of course, be sure to like, subscribe, and even consider supporting me in-game by using code SKULL. Thanks folks for all the love, and of course, I'll catch you guys all inside the next video. Peace!